fact, that sort of brings us on to the Tommy Robinson March. We're going to talk about that a little bit on the weekend. What were your feelings about that?
I think it
wasn't 3 million people. It was,
it was between
100,000, wasn't it? Something
110,000 up to potentially 250,000. Still a good turnout.
Yeah,
still a good turnout. Yeah. Far more than the Palestine rallies, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Who all march and rally organisers in London seem to use the Hamas Ministry of Health for their totals. they're always vastly exaggerated, but it's still a good number. And I think in many ways it provided the mirror image of the Palestinian marches, because not everyone on a Palestinian march is anti-Semitic. But if you go on a march that's organised by anti-Semites, where they have anti-Semitic speakers and people in the crowd are being anti-Semitic, then you're on an anti-Semitic march. By the same token, if you go on a march, no matter how well-intentioned, organised by someone who is of the far right, with far-right speakers saying some quite outrageous things on stage, actually, I thought, and there are undeniably further right people in the crowd, then you're probably on a far-right march. And that's not to say that a lot of these people weren't patriotic and they aren't deeply upset by some of the problems they see in the country. But I don't think Tommy Robinson is the answer.
No, I mean, broadly I agree, but I can't help but feel that, there are a lot of good people on that march.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of Union flags. There are a lot of George crosses, and those are good things. Those are good things to see. And there are thousands upon thousands of people who are just ordinary, decent people who've the worst thing they've done in their life has been born working class, basically, from the point of view of the liberal elites. These are the people who have been sneered at and derided and downtrodden.
Remember the Emily Thornberry tweet about the St. George Cross flag?
2014, in my book as well, actually, as it happens.
It's been going on a long time.
Yeah, they've been, those are the people who form the backbone of the army. We need them to fight for our country and defend us, and yet all the rest of the time, the liberal elites just deride them, scoff at them, demean them, because they articulate exactly what I was saying in my book. They articulate values which the elites, the centrist fundamentalists, have decided we're no longer allowed to have. Values that every other country in the world is allowed to have, that have been part of human experience since the dawn of history. Pride in your country, love of your country, wanting borders, respecting your history, all of those things. Not to say that we don't welcome outsiders. Of course we welcome outsiders. You know what? I'm not talking about that. But these are good people. And I felt that very strongly.
Yeah, and you know what? It was a really interesting juxtaposition, because in the last month I've been in Ukraine, I've been in Gaza, and I've been in the USA.
Yeah.
And in all three of those countries, you see American flags, Ukrainian flags, Israeli flags everywhere.
Yeah.
And it really struck me, actually, that you so seldom see that in the UK. It's been so crushed down. I've seen Palestinian flags in the UK more in the last 2 years than I have UK flags.
Yeah. And in fact, after the Ukraine war began, there was that moment when everyone started flying the Ukrainian flag. And I felt that was almost like a sublimated patriotism, that we weren't fully able to fly our own flag with that much pride, but now we could fly the Ukrainian flag and get that instinct indulged a little bit. And I think that what it's led to with this backlash of people flying English flags and so forth, it's something it's on the one hand, it's good. We need to start flying our flag more. On the other hand, there's a sense of sectarianism about it, that, districts of our country that are heavily Muslim or heavily liberal are going to fly the Palestinian flag. And then areas that are not are going to fly the English flag, and it becomes a tribal thing, which isn't British.
No, it's not at all. And you see this in Northern Ireland all the time, which is obviously the absolute template for sectarianism.
Yeah.
If you go somewhere like Londonderry, on the west side of the river, it's all Palestine flags. And because they fly Palestine flags, on the east side of the river, it's all Israel Trump flags.
Yeah.
I don't think either side has a particular understanding of the complexities of that particular war in the Middle East, or could even, articulate the history of it. But it's that instinctive antagonism, which I think is so dangerous.
Yeah, and it gets to the heart of what I'm trying to do with my book, and what we're trying to explore in the podcast is, how do we restore our pride in the flag in a British way, in a reasonable way, that isn't sectarian, that isn't extremist or radical or chauvinist, that's just patriotic. It's how do we get back that instinct that we should never have lost, or should never have been taken from us, should never have been repressed by the elites in the first place. But now that it has been repressed for so long, how do we remember what it's like to have that healthy, natural patriotism without straying into radicalism?
Yeah, without it being hijacked by demagogues. And that's the danger. And you see, I think we see that across the Atlantic, where kind of fear and worry are hijacked. It's for people who are pushing a very strong agenda that I don't think is helpful. Yeah. And, that's my concern about last weekend, as you see Katie Hopkins and Lawrence Fox and Tommy Robinson. And, these are not the people that are going to lead us out of this situation.
Yeah. And I mean, I watched some of the rally online, and I felt quite sad. I felt inspired by looking at all those people who just want their country back, to use that phrase, overused phrase. But I felt dismayed by some of the speeches and the tone from the stage, because like you say, there was the kind of the thuggery of Tommy Robinson, fine, we know about that, but there was also this quite strange form of Christianity that really wasn't very British. There was a lot of American inspired preaching going on, and it reminded me again. Sorry, my book's fresh in my mind. I don't want to keep talking about it, but there's stuff in there about American Christianity and how it's becoming increasingly radicalized by movements which are sort of Pentecostalism on steroids. There's this new, something called I wrote some notes here, New Apostolic Reformation movement, which by some measures accounts for about 40% of American Christians. I don't know if that's true. That could be exaggerated. But Tucker Carlson speaks from that hymn book, so to speak. Tucker Carlson, the American unhinged, in my view, TV personality, former TV personality, now YouTube star, who claims to have been mauled by a demon in his sleep and have woken up with scratches along his back. These people, they spend a lot of the time doing battle with demons. They think that they go to a city and they demon map it. This demon is in charge of that bit. That demon's in charge of that bit. We've got to fight them through our prayer, speaking in tongues, whatever it is. We're the soldiers of Christ doing battle with evil. But they also have something called Seven Mountain Theology, or 7M it's abbreviated to, where they want to take over, in the name of Jesus, 7 aspects of society, which are media, the government, education, economy, family, religion, and the arts. So they want to turn a secular state into more of a theocratic one, or rather, maybe that's an exaggeration, but they want to bring Christianity into how the secular state has been organized and structured. And these things are certainly not British, let's put it that way. And some of the stuff that we saw coming from the stage wasn't. And it reminded me of one of the episodes that we've got coming up, where I interviewed Tom Holland, the historian, who wrote Dominion and talked a lot about Christianity and its influence. Well, that's what the whole book is about, and its influence on society today. And there's this bit at the end to go back to the migrant wave of 2015 and Angela Merkel's open door policy to migrants that she had at the time. Wir schaffen das, we can do this. So at that time, again, I was there on the ground seeing all this unfold. And with all these thousands upon thousands of people from numerous countries, unidentified, mainly men, streaming towards Germany, her reaction was, let's open the door, let them in, we can do it. And according to Tom Holland, he said in the podcast and in the book, and I think he's right, it came from her Christian faith. She was brought up as a devout Christian. And in her mind, the model of the good Christian was the Good Samaritan, where you care for the poor and the weak, and you uplift them, and you're charitable to them in the model of how Jesus was. But then he set it against the Christianity that was prevalent in Hungary and still is, the Viktor Orban Christianity, which is more, I suppose, a crusader model that, we've been fighting the Saracen, fighting the Muslims for hundreds of years. Hungary's got its own particular history of that. Yeah. We know what these guys are. We're not going to let them into our country and invade. Soldiers of Christ kind of approach. And these two different models of Christianity, what I said to Tom Holland at the time was, okay, which one do you think is the more genuine version of Christianity? And he said that he sided, if he had to, with Merkel's vision of the Good Samaritan. So I said, well, okay, if you're going to be running a country on those principles, how can you possibly have any sensible immigration policy at all? And his response was something like, that's why I don't think you can run a country on Christian principles, which was interesting. But I think bringing it back to Tommy Robinson, from the stage, you saw a lot of the Crusader type Christianity. We're against Islam, we're against the invaders. You didn't see any compassion, so far as I could see. There was no sort of openness to people who aren't like us, but who do have a place here because they are British and they are decent.